Welcome to the Cowtown Cats Lacrosse Podcast, where we talk all things Panther City Lacrosse Club. Now here are your hosts, Nicholas and Andy.
Well, Panther City went into New York, hoping to jumpstart their season and get a 1 in the win column, where they got their first ever win as a franchise against the Riptide. Welcome everyone to Cowtown Cats Lacrosse Podcast. I'm Nicholas, of course joined by Andy.
Hello.
Cold weather was kind of the theme this last weekend up in the north. And it even made the Buffalo Bills have to postpone their playoff game till Monday. But nothing stops for lacrosse. They pushed through and played all their games over this weekend.
Yeah. Good on Long Island and the Riptide fans there for toughing the weather there.
Right. Well, and I think over the last few days, even for us, it's been, today we got a little precipitation. It kind of froze over, but by mid-afternoon, it kind of went away, which was, typical Texas. It tries to be cold and northern, and then by midday, it's like, okay, half of it's gone.
Yeah, you can experience, you can experience all 4 seasons in like 8 hours, basically.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and now it's like 17 degrees, and tomorrow's supposed to be below freezing again. So, a little bit of cold. I like how it waits until January, until after most of the winter months go by.
Right.
But, so... big game for us, and actually a big game for New York, as both teams were 1-3, looking to kind of get back towards a 500 and kind of get their season going. But we did kind of forget a few storylines to mention from last week's episode. So going into this game, 2 big things. First of all, it was rookie Elijah Gash's. It's his first game for Panther City.
Yeah, and, he probably the main reason he's playing is because Captain Matt Hosick and then Brendan Mitchell were both out this week. So kind of unfortunate, but hey, the team has the next man up mentality, and it's a good way for Gash to get some valuable minutes early this season.
Yeah, and he was definitely in there early on. But the other forgotten storyline was, of course, Callum Crawford going against the team he actually was traded from to Panther City, going back to New York.
Yeah. I don't think he quite did as well for them early on last season as he ended up doing for Panther City after he joined up. Who knows? Maybe it was due to homesickness, wanting to get a bit closer to Oklahoma. I know that's something he mentioned on Donville's Back of the Bird podcast. But so a bit of a reunion for him. I'm sure there was a lot of people on that coaching staff or even the team that he still keeps in touch with and is pretty close with. But, hey, gave him a little extra motivation to have a good showing.
Yeah, and there were some supporters for Crawford there, so it was nice to see, a good group there of Panther City fans. But we started this game, one of the questions we had at the end of last episode was, would Damude, A, would he have a good game, and B, would he even start? Because Cam actually really had a strong second half in the last game. So I think it came down to actually probably in a more important decision than we know. But Damude actually started this one, which I guess is you go with the regular starter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if he had 2 subpar games in a row, or 2 where the opponent just came out guns blazing and really put the hurt on us, then maybe there might have been a substitution to start the game. But because it shows that Coach TK has a lot of confidence in Damude and what he's accomplished since the team's inaugural season, really.
Yeah. I think even the broadcast mentioned he started pretty much every game as the starting goalie. So, consistency on there. And then another part of consistency, Ronan Pusch. I mean, he was taking faceoffs. I think that's the first time we've had this season somebody 2 games in a row taking faceoffs to start the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As last game showed, it definitely beat the faceoff by committee that the team was trying to get some continuity there. And then with this game, I'd say it was of a little bit more importance because the guy for the Riptide taking the faceoffs was actually the person with the most faceoff wins in league history in Jay Thorenberg over. I think by the second half, he had over 3,000 and still counting. So going up against a savvy vet like him along the lines of a Jeremy Thompson, it was nice to have someone who's a bit of a specialist in Pusch taking him.
Yeah, yeah, and he started off good. I mean, we got the win right off the bat with the opening faceoff. And to start this game, I will point out this. It was one thing I wrote. That was like the first thing I wrote down. The defense actually did come out this game, and they felt like they were playing a little bit more steady, but a little bit more physical too.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and you definitely have to do that against a team with kind of a wonder kid like Jeff Teat and some of the other good sporting cast members that they have. I know even on their end, we had a broken stick on the opening possession. I don't remember whose stick broke, but yeah, it kind of truncated our offensive possession or what we could do in terms of getting the rebound once a guy was caught there empty-handed.
Right. I always think it's interesting to see when you see, especially lacrosse sticks breaking, because
Yeah,
I mean, hockey sticks, but this one, these ones are obviously made a little bit different.
yeah, you made a metal. You'd think they'd last, but man, guys are beating each other up out there.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, speaking of which, we mentioned Gash getting his first game. Well, unfortunately, about 2.5 minutes in, he made his first impact in a negative way. Unfortunately, he gets a penalty, and New York took advantage of that. They go up 1-0.
Yeah, it was unfortunate to see him get that. I think for coincidentally pushing Teat in the back, just trying to kind of make his presence felt in his very first game, and Riley O'Connor was able to capitalize on the power play. But hey, overall, I like the aggression, and it takes rookies a bit of time to kind of feel out what they can and can't do, how the refs are going to treat them.
Yeah, yeah, and it was good to kind of get his. I hate to use this analogy, but get his feet wet and get that experience right off the bat. He knows, like you said, it kind of lets him know what he can and can't get away with. But right after that, we talked about how we keep expecting Donville to keep stepping up and making more and more plays this year, just kind of going off of his rookie season last year. Well, it didn't take him long. He showed up in a big way, started off 1-1, gets a great goal right off the bat.
Yeah, and that's a play that I feel like we've seen at least a couple other times this season where after Panther City gets the ball, Donville coming off the bench, he darts towards the goal pretty hard and then is able to utilize a pick. I think might have been Gautier or Caputo, and he was able to basically hide the shot attempt from behind that pick, and sure enough, it went in and tied things up for us.
Yeah, yeah, and little did we know, I mean, foreshadowing that this was the thing, that was the goal to get things going for a really big first quarter for him. But he tied us up 1-1, and then again, just defense. They're getting turnovers, playing a lot better than last week, which I think we mentioned this before. This is kind of the first time we've had consistent games, one after another, and so it allows the team to kind of pick up on the things that they kind of messed up on last week.
Yeah, you definitely saw a bit more polish on it, though New York was pretty aggressive themselves. I know there was one play where Medeiros, he caught the follow-up of a New York player's shot attempt, and the opponent's stick actually knocked his helmet off. And so he seemed a little bit not quite woozy, but checking to see if his teeth were in place and whatnot for a good second. Thankfully, he was all right. But hey, we mentioned that Jeff Teat is kind of their offensive wizard, and he ended up scoring soon after Donville's bucket to take back the lead 2-1 for New York.
Well, yeah, and you mentioned it last week. He does have the eternal green light. I mean, he just any chance he has, or any time he has a chance to take a shot, it's like, oh yeah, no, just go for it. And I mean, when you have that kind of, when you're the main, I don't know, I don't want to call him the main skill player on the team, but because there's obviously other players, but I mean, when he has that kind of talent, he can take advantage of any chance he gets.
Yeah, he's a special talent, and if I'm not mistaken, our former offensive coordinator is his father, and ended up joining up with the Riptide, and so it definitely, they obviously have a great familiarity being father and son, and having him probably training his kid up from day one, and so. He was doing what he does early on.
For sure. But as we mentioned, Donville thought to be outshined. He got back in there, got another goal, 2-2, and Donville, I mean, he was really kind of putting the offense on his back that first quarter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was cool to see that early goal not too long after his first one. Pish had a great assist to him, and it really wasn't too different from the first goal. Like it was almost a bit of deja vu, where he was on the same side of the net, was hiding behind a pick, and was able to get it in past the goalie. So great start for him.
No, great, really good start. I mean, it's kind of it's something that I didn't expect to see as far as this game goes, but something else I didn't expect to see, a Callum Crawford penalty, which I don't really remember a whole lot of penalties from the time he's played for Panther City, but yeah, no, he gets a penalty, which I don't know. I guess it was kind of a penalty. It seemed like he was still going after the ball more. I don't know.
Yeah, I know the way that the commentators talked about it. They said that if you're gonna check someone one-handed, you're often gonna get called for being, I guess, a bit out of control, because the opponent or whoever has got possession of the ball can make it so that your stick looks a bit herky-jerky and basically nudge it to hit themselves in the helmet or something, and then exaggerate a bit of contact. And that sent him to the sin bin, which you never want to see an offensive player, especially that important an offensive player, go there.
Yeah. And of course, that led to another power play for them. T takes advantage. He gets another goal. They're up 3-2. At this point, it's like it seemed like every time they get a goal, we're down a person.
Yeah. They certainly took advantage of their power play opportunities in the first quarter and throughout the game, you could say. We'll get to that later, but
yeah, but finally, after that, we got a power play of our own, and man, Donville gets another goal, hat trick. I mean, this game is quickly turning into 2022 Rookie of the Year versus 2023 Rookie of the Year, and I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah, you guys can just go against each other, I guess.
Yeah, it was fun to see that little mini shootout between the two of them. Very much anything you can do, I can do better moment. But it worked out for us. Got us a tie on the road early on, and even though Damude and the Riptide goalie Cameron Dunkerley even though some goals were scored against them, they were making some pretty good saves throughout that first and throughout the game.
Oh yeah, no, I mean Damude was getting some great blocks. And like I said, our defense early on was really good. So I think overall, defense was playing steady, and that's something that I think they built upon coming from last week at the end of last week's game. I did put this in. You mentioned Sheridan. It's only a matter of time before he gets one of these crazy goals, but he was literally like defending off a defender. And he got the ball off of a rebound, and he was like, "Oh, I'm going to dunk it." And he just shoots it at it, and I think it hit the pole actually.
Yeah. It's only a matter of time before one of those goes in, because he's certainly not lacking in confidence and a little bit of flair to go with it. And it's funny enough, he wasn't the only one to try to dunk that quarter. I know Caputo tried to dunk from behind that just knocked the entire goal off kilter, and they didn't call it a goal on the play. TK challenged it, and they confirmed that it wasn't a goal, but definitely like the aggression on both sides of the ball that we should.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, ending the first quarter, we're tied 3-3. And honestly, all things considered, I think we played good on both ends. But, the second quarter started. We're tied up. It was kind of weird. Again, sometimes it's just like hockey. Sometimes I understand delay of games. Other times, not so much. But Teat actually got a delay of game. And it's funny because they were talking about it. Like, they were, like, right when that happened, they're like, oh, yeah, come back to the bench. And they put him on the bench, and they're like, nope, penalty is on you. You got to go in. And, honestly, that led to an advantage for us. But, I don't know, it's just kind of funny they were trying to hide him.
Yeah. I know when they called it, I was trying to figure out what was happening and whatnot, and it's like, oh wow, it's on Teat. Then we really gotta, if they're gonna have that much more difficult a time scoring man down, but we gotta take advantage on the other side as well. And Dunkerley was able to stop our first power play possession. But I know that next one, something I've never seen before since we started keeping up with the team, happened.
Right. I mean, this is, again, yeah, like you said, the first time I've ever seen something like this. But yeah, so we get a shot off and they block it, and like the defender picks it up and he's like getting ready to go back
Right.
out on offense. And Gautier just, he had the wherewithal, I guess. And he like pokes the ball out of his stick, and it just bounces back into the net while the goalie is like unaware of what's going on.
Yeah. Based on Gautier's reaction, that probably wasn't the plan, but you saw a few smiles after that. And it's funny because looking at the official box score, it looks like they credited it to Caputo, who was the guy that had the missed shot attempt. But really, it should be credited to Goat for being able to get a well-timed and somewhat lucky stick check on. I think it was Noseworthy to have it roll in, and you just saw like their goalie and Noseworthy just being like, God, did that really just happen? And we were sitting at home just like, wow, that really, we'll take it.
Right? Well, and especially the goalie's expression afterwards. He's just like, seriously, like, I blocked the shot and everything, and that's how it goes in. Yeah, no. But, I mean, it was a goal nonetheless. That put us up 4-3. And then it just, our offense was looking better than last week. I will say this. Our offense did seem to play a lot steadier, I guess, this week. Not as many just mistakes.
Yeah, and I don't think the Riptide was playing any less aggressive than some of the other defenses we faced, but there certainly seemed to be a lot more, I guess you could say, cohesion and proper execution than there was against the Swarm or some of the other teams that we faced. So definitely good to see. It can only help create an established continuity and good chemistry on that side of the ball.
Right. Well, and you just mentioned too, I mean, like, both sides of our team seem to be playing pretty good, but unfortunately, another power play against us, gives New York an advantage. They get another goal. They tie it up 4-4 at that point.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I think it was good when that it got called on, and then Larson Sundown was able to get a diving goal on Damude, and Damude did actually make quite a few good one-on-one saves in the first half, but yeah, it was just a good shot. You got to tip your hat off to them, and then you also got to think like, can't let easy penalties get to us. Got to be able to play 5-on-5 as much as you can. So
it just seemed like anytime they had the man up, it was harder for us. But I mean, that's obviously the case anytime there's a power play. But so last episode, we had our first ever segment where we said, show me something. We picked a player to, hey, show me something this game. Well, Jason Knox must have listened or whatever, but he showed up because, I mean, he gets a great goal, puts us up 5-4. And at that point, I mean, both teams were going back and forth. So it was a great goal by him.
Yeah, I think throughout that first half, there were no streaks. It was all just trading goals back and forth. And yeah, Knox, you had mentioned last week, you wanted to see a little bit more from him. And yeah, bit of foreshadowing. He definitely showed up, and that first goal was a sign of things to come.
For sure. I mean, that was really great for him. But again, New York it seemed like that first half, New York just was hanging shot for shot with us, because we would go up and then they would go up, then we would tie, and then we would go up and they would tie. But yeah, they hung pretty tough with us that first half. They get another quick goal. At that point, it's 5-5.
Yeah, Colton Lidstone got it to Kiernan for it. It was very similar to some of the plays that you see Caputo and Donville or Showtime, any of our guys run together. Just a pretty straightforward pick and roll, but there's a reason why it's such an effective play. And so, I don't love to see them tied up that quickly, but they're playing in front of their home crowd. They're a potent offense, so.
Yeah, and like I said before, they're in the same position as we were, so they were, fighting for the same thing. But you mentioned Crawford. couple minutes before halftime, he finally breaks the tie, gets his first goal against his team he played for last year, puts us up 6-5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a great little snipe of his. He basically hit him with a hezzy and looked like he was going to hit low, but instead hit the top corner of the net instead. So classic Showtime, and it's nice to see him get on the board in the first half.
Well, and that was towards the end of the first half. And one last thing I wrote before the halftime, there was a great chance for Teat to get a goal, and it wasn't exactly 1-on-1 against Damude, but it was to the point where like he had a clear shot.
Yeah,
and Damude just like stepped up, blocked the shot, and I mean, I thought that was great not only for us as a team, but it was great for Damude.
Yeah, to be able to rotate his body wearing all that gear the way he did to make that save was really impressive, because it didn't. Yeah, he basically had to position his stick just in time for it to be able to catch and deflect the ball. So, and then I think right after that he was able to roll it out to Pan to give us one more scoring opportunity, which we didn't score, but it was still great awareness by him.
Yeah. No, then that's what I mean. Like, it just seemed like things were working better for us this game. Damude was playing obviously a lot better. He was looking to come back from last week. But yeah, halftime, 6-5. My overall thoughts for the first half, I would just say team is playing better. Offense didn't look sloppy. They didn't look hectic. Yeah, the offense wasn't looking as sloppy and hectic as they had the last few games. Actually, well, not so much the end of last game, but like the first half, and then even some of our possessions in the previous games.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I noted, you didn't really see it much in the first half, except for maybe Donville's first goal where he came streaking after subbing in from the bench. But we were getting a lot of good transition opportunities. We weren't getting goals out of them, but it was good to see Medeiros and Goodwin get those opportunities, and eventually, if not this game, then at some game down the line, the shots are going to start falling.
Oh yeah, and that was, I think it was good for our team to again continue what we had going good for us at the end of the last game, and so after halftime, coming out in the third, didn't take Riptide long to kind of get back on the board. They had a great. I mean, again, it's one of those plays you hate to say was good for them, but a great behind the goal dunk on Damude that tied us back up at 6-6.
Yeah, Riley O'Connor. I think he ended up scoring the most points for them. But yeah, it was a great dunk, and it was pretty early on. Less than a minute in to go.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was. What can you say? Got to take your hat off to it. Maybe Damude had to stretch a little bit more coming out of the locker room.
Well, again, it seems like there's always one play a game by the other team that you're like, you really can't do much more about that.
We'll spot him that one.
Yeah. But then, Crawford doing what he does best. He kind of kicked off a run for us, getting us kick-started in the second half. Gets a great goal to answer back, 7-6. Crawford, again, it just consistency throughout this year.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and what he did, it almost seemed more like something that I've seen Donville do more often, where he would swim move and get the ball in his stick over the defender's shoulder. Basically, a freestyle or that kind of swim stroke sort of move to free himself up and get by him before they could close out on him. So yeah, it was great to see, and he had just scored that goal to end the first half too. So seeing him score 2 in a row was great.
Oh yeah, and like I said, he kicked off a kind of a mini run for us, because after that, General Patton, they fight.
Yep.
It took him a few games to show back up, but he got a great goal. It wasn't exactly in transition, but it was in transition enough. 8-6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a great feed off of Evan Messer, really heads up play. And Patton's not one that always looks for a shot, especially compared to guys like Tony Malcolm and Medeiros. But when he sees an opportunity, he usually takes pretty good advantage of it. So great to see him get on the board and put us up by 2.
Well, and you just mentioned him too, Medeiros. I mean, he was pushing the ball forward, but got a hit again pretty hard.
Yeah, he was checking his teeth on that one.
Yeah, and led us to a power play to, again, Jason Knox. I'm not saying me calling him out last episode, did anything, but I'll take a little bit of credit. He got another great goal, put us up 9-6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and part of me is thinking like, oh, even though what Medeiros is doing isn't necessarily showing up in the box score, him sacrificing his body and kind of pissing defenders off to the point where he'll draw penalties on them. It's helping us out as well.
Which he seems like the person to do that.
Yeah. He's him and Goat very much seem like players that the opponents hate and want to beat up on. So yeah, thank you, Medeiros, for sacrificing your body for some of these goals we're getting.
Right. I mean, yeah, it doesn't show up in the box score like you said, but again, after that, I mean, Damude just started getting some really good blocks. Unfortunately, the Riptide would get some offensive rebounds, but he still played solid in that second half.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was doing really well and making all sorts of saves. In the first half, I think there were quite a few shoulder saves, whereas in the second, you saw him going down a little more, staying back and just getting big in the net to prevent the scores. So, yeah, really good bounce back game from him.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And then, keeping us in the game defensively, but offensively, Knox again. This is really a kind of his coming out game. He gets a great goal, 10-6 at that point. I mean, overall, the team was playing good, and it's been something that we haven't seen since the beginning of the year.
Mm-hmm. They were rolling, and it really shows how interchangeable the offense is when it's clicking. He scored basically on something that Damude scored on in the first quarter, where he was utilizing, I think it was a Will Malcolm pick, and that got him a hat trick with plenty of time to go in the game. So great showing. Yeah.
And the offense, I mean, obviously was rolling at that point. They almost got a second goal or another goal after that. Goat almost had a goal. It was challenged. It was waved off. That was another one of those where I don't exactly 100% understand the ruling.
Yeah,
because he was in there, but he was also the next person to have possession after.
I couldn't figure that out because Goat misses. Crawford picks up the rebound. He gets it back to Gauthier. And they said the shooter can't travel through the crease and be the first person to receive the pass on a loose ball, something like that. I still gotta wrap my head around it myself, honestly.
I mean, I get it. I get it. So the best thing I can think of is like a football analogy, like during punts, if a player goes out of bounds.
Oh, you got to establish possession, like.
You like, well, not like that, but like if a defender goes down to defend the punt, like and they get pushed out of bounds, they can't be the first person to touch it because they weren't completely. I don't know. There's certain rules like that where like you have to completely establish being back in the field of play, but you can't be the first person to touch it. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's just like one of those side rules that I guess I'll have to learn more.
I think if he hadn't had fallen after his shot attempt into the crease, I think it would have been a non-issue then, because otherwise it just seemed like a trademark Gauthier goal.
Yeah. Well, that no goal kind of led to Teets saying, hey, remember when we were going back and forth in the first? Well, eternal green light is back again because he kind of took over at that point. He pushed through the defense, got a great goal, kept him at 10-7, but man, not only that, but shortly after that, he got another goal. It was 10-7, and then it was 10-8. And there's a reason we said to keep an eye on him.
Yeah, he's definitely not a guy you want to see get hot and get on a roll. So, props to him for getting those 2 goals in a row. Damude played great, but he can't stop them all. He did have a good series of stops soon after that. I know Sundown, Matisse, and Kiernan all had pretty good shots on goal, but they couldn't get past Damude. So he kind of helped quell the run a bit until our guys could kind of reconnect
retake over.
Yeah. God, what's the word I'm looking for? Reestablish themselves on offense.
There you go. Yeah. Well, and then like you said, T's just kind of that generational talent that they have there in the Riptide. So, he obviously, was playing really good that night. But I would say we had 3 good players playing good that night because Crawford, I have to keep an eye on him as well. He got another good goal, 11-8 at that point.
Yeah. I feel like so many of our goals this game were based off pick and rolls or guys sending good screens and whatnot. And in this case, Caputo was able to occupy 2 defenders that opened Crawford up kind of near the top to go up 11-8. And so, yeah, really good play. Good to see that Crawford's got in his usual rhythm, especially to stem the Jeff Teat onslaught that we were facing.
Well, yeah. And so at that point, I was like, okay, good. Let's keep this going. Let's keep, we were only up by 3. But again, the Riptide, they got a power play. And, that led to another power play goal for New York. Again, it just seemed like the reoccurring theme for the night was when they were up a man, they got a goal.
Yeah, and I felt kind of bad for Elijah Gash for that being his second penalty of the night and his first game ever. You obviously don't want to spend more time than necessary in the penalty box, and you don't want that to lead to power play opportunities for the other team. But hey, he's still learning. I think that stuff will hopefully get cleaned up a bit more as he familiarizes himself with the league and how it gets officiated.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, again, like you mentioned, he kind of feel bad, but at the same time, it does happen, especially, early on in your career. But after 3, it was 11-9, still pretty close. But I felt like we did have some chances. We could have pulled away a little bit more, but again, I just steadiness and consistency is probably the 2 things that I was glad to see that we had this game.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and to start that 4th, you could almost say the same about the Riptide. I mean, there were no goals for what felt like almost 10 minutes or so. Damude was making great saves. Dunkerley was making saves on his end as well. The defense was making it hard for the offenses to really click. So Damude did have a great diving save against O'Connor at one point.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, that's what I mean. I feel like Damude was playing a little bit more urgent this game. I don't know. And who knows what happens behind the scenes, but I'm sure after last game, he had some talking and had some self-searching for himself as well to improve for this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Obviously, and McLeod played great in the relief time he got last game, but I'm sure there's a bit of you want to play well. You want to show why you're worthy of that starting position, and Damude did a great job of that this game.
Oh yeah. It was a great bounce back game for him, but like you said, it was a lot of back and forth, especially early on the 4th. But Will Malcolm, it took him 3.5 quarters, but finally got a rebound shot on goal. That put us up 12-9. I was actually kind of wondering when he would show up.
Yeah. It's pretty rare that Panther City goes through an entire game where Will Malcolm doesn't show up in the goal column.
Yeah. No, and honestly, I think he has. Does he have a goal per game?
I'm pretty sure he does.
Yeah.
He's got to have at least one per.
Yeah, I feel like he's probably the only player in the Panther City. So yeah, that has a goal per game. But yeah, we had that one, and then we had another one where we had another almost goal, but the foot was on the line again, which I think we've had one of those per game this season.
Yeah, this one was kind of funny, and you could tell some of the Riptide defenders weren't very happy with Caputo because when he dived into it, unfortunately he missed, but it knocked the entire goal plus Dunkerley over from behind. So they were probably like, "Hey, what the heck are you trying to do to our goalie?" And thankfully they're well, depending on how you look at it, thankfully or not thankfully, there weren't any extracurriculars that stemmed from that. But you like the aggression. You like that our guys aren't taking their foot off the gas pedal at all.
Yeah. Well, and it just kind of it set the tone throughout the game. I think from our end, we really wanted to come out and establish, hey, we think we're the better team, and let's make sure that we think that as well. But that led to a little bit more back and forth. Now, this is the thing again, I think we talked about it a few times last year. They pulled their goalie with what, like 3 or 4 minutes left?
There was quite a bit of time.
Which, yeah, I think is very rare. And it actually led to them turning the ball over, and Tony Malcolm, I mean, he's like, okay, well, I'm just going to go down there and get a goal. So he gets an empty netter. That put us up, 14-9 at that point.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it was a great goalie assist to Tony for that. And I think, Tony Malcolm, he does a lot of things that don't show up in the box score as well as a defender and a transition guy. But so for him to get on the board's great. It shows that like we're able to score on these opportunities. And hey, you got to take advantage of an empty netter. So it's nice to see. I think right before that, Knox had one more goal.
Oh yeah. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Sorry, I skipped over Knox.
No worries.
The guy that I called out. I mean, he got a goal right before then too. That was 13-9. But yeah, I forgot to mention. So he gets that goal. That was his 4th goal of the game, and he only had 2 goals going into this game. So that's what I mean. It was a breakout game for him.
Yeah, it was great. He had one of those twisters where he was pretty much right in front of the goal, and then was just kind of working some had the stick dancing for a bit before he's able to score it. And so really good score from him that helped set up put us up by 4 with almost just with less than 7 minutes to play. And so really put us in a good position to close things out.
Yeah. And so like we mentioned, they pulled their goalie. Tony Malcolm gets that empty netter, but they kept their goalie out, which gave them the extra man.
Yeah.
Which we talked about before. Just I don't know how the defense can get better at defending that. It's always hard when they have an extra man because you just don't know what can happen. But they got New York has the extra man. They got a goal, and then they kept the extra man out there and got another goal, and then another one. So like within a few minutes, I mean they only had like 3 minutes left when they started this, but within a few minutes it was 14-12, and I'm just like, I hate to see this kind of a comeback because it makes it feel like the game is closer than it is. I mean, I saw the same thing. I mentioned this in my notes. I saw the same thing Friday night, Vegas versus San Diego. Vegas was up like 4 points, and then San Diego pulls their goalie, and next thing you know, goal, and then another goal. And so it's like they cut that deficit fast.
Yeah, I think there's got to be a pretty significant difference between 6 versus 5 and 5-on-4. Plus, I mean, it's late. I'm sure the Riptide were playing with a lot of desperation by that point. But something about it, I know that first goal was a sundown dunk. Don't remember if it was from behind the net or anything, but there's only eventually the chances of there being a breakdown in the defense are high if you've got one extra person to cover, and eventually a zone might break down, or if you try to play everyone man, then obviously that's going to leave someone open. So credit to them for scoring 3 goals in a minute. It was pretty scary to see that happen late, because even though by the time Kiernan scored to put them down just by 2 with 1.5 to go, you kind of thought like, oh my gosh, that anything is possible.
Right. Well, it's kind of the opposite feeling we had last week. Like we were making the comeback. It was like, oh, hey, I'm sure Georgia was thinking the same thing we were. We're like, what the heck? But I guess it was at the end of the day, it was a little bit too high of a hill to climb. Because after that 14-12, Panther City held on for the last minute and a half, and they kind of shut the door on the last few shots. They held on and they win 14-12.
Yeah, I would say that third quarter really helped out in terms of stemming that last gasp by the Riptide and being able to get the win.
Yeah, and I mentioned this a few times. That between that third quarter and just the defense again playing really solid for 3.5 quarters, pretty much. It is hard to defend when they have a man advantage, but. Yeah, I think they did a solid job that game, and so it was good to see kind of the team overall show up. And we haven't really seen that since Vancouver.
Yeah. I'd say this was probably as close to a complete game as we've seen since that first game. And even in that first game, I think, we gave up the first goal against Vancouver, and the first might have been shaky, and we played well after that. This one, in many ways, this was the opposite of Bound, because the first 3 quarters were really solid, competitive. We kind of, what you would have thought was blowing the doors open in the third, and then even to start the fourth when we go up by 5, and then near the end we kind of let our foot off the gas a little bit, but thankfully time ran out.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's something Coach TK will address, during this bye week that's coming up. But this game obviously ended in a win for us, which is great. But it also was kind of a big game for a couple different players, which leads us, of course, into Mr. Andrews' stats of the game. Mr. Andrew, there's a couple probably offensive stats you're going to talk about this game.
Yeah, well, just going down to how things ended up, it was pretty evenly matched throughout. I think we had 52 shots on goal to New York's 56, which kind of ties into how well Nick Damude played. He saved 44 out of those 56 shots for 78.5% save percentage, and it would have been even higher if not for that late Riptide run that we talked about. Meanwhile, Cameron Dunkerley, obviously they went empty net later on, but he was only able to save 74.5% of the goals that came his way. So sub 75%, it's going to be tough to win under those circumstances. So credit to Nick Damude for outplaying his counterpart on the other end this game. Face-offs were actually a bit rougher for us this game than they were against Georgia. We only won a third of them, but you still like to see us be competitive and have a guy in there that has the ability to win some every now and then. Again, Ronan Pusch was going up against Jace Thornburg, who's one of the great face-off guys in the league's history. But I'd say it was still better than the first 3 games. Other than that, similar to the shots on goal, things were pretty close throughout, which ultimately did show the competitive nature. We only had 1 more loose ball. We only had 1 less turnover. And each team got at least 3 power play goals out of their opportunities. The Riptide actually went 4 for 4, so I don't know if that's... they went 4 for 4 for power plays, and then you had all his goals later on at the end of the fourth where we were a man down too. So that's probably something that Steve Toll and the guys are going to look to shore up over the bye week. So all in all, pretty close. We were able to, quote-unquote, hold Jeff Teague to 6 points, which was 3 less than he had in his win against Philly. So that was pretty nice to see. They did spread the wealth around a bit with Riley O'Connor and Kiel Matitz, but it's always good when you can keep Jeff Teague sub 7, sub 8, because it's very easy for him to get double-digit points over the course of a game. And yeah, on our side, it was pretty balanced. You had 4 players with 5 points overall. Donville had 3 goals, 2 assists. Will Malcolm, he only had that 1 goal, but he had 4 assists. Knox had four goals on just 8 shot attempts, which is pretty remarkable. And he had an assist to boot. And then Showtime had 3 goals and 2 assists as well. So a really good balanced effort by our team. And then Caputo and Patton, Tony Malcolm, other guys kind of chipped in as well. So really good balanced attack on offense.
Well, and I think that's kind of the biggest difference you can tell between, even though us and New York had the same, record going in, it did seem like a little bit more balanced attack. And we obviously had a few players that showed up more than others, but it does seem like the Riptide do rely on Jeff Teague to kind of show up every game and show out, because if he's not there, some of those, there's a lot of points missing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Because even though, Donville's not exactly the same kind of player as Teed is, obviously they're both great playmakers. Teed is such a great scorer that it's almost like he picks and chooses what the team needs or what he's able to do each game. Whereas, I'd like to think with us there's a bit more well, you'd ideally want it to get to the point where you're not, we talked about this on past episodes, where you're not having to rely on just solely Callum Crawford's, his wizardry going one-on-one, or Will Malcolm just running past guys. You want to be able to utilize things like setting picks for your teammates. We see that all the time with Caputo, where he'll set a pick and then cut and then get a pretty nice opportunity. Same with Goat. And so seeing that much balance in this last game on the scoring column was really hopefully a good sign of things to come.
Well, and it also, I mean, a continuation about Teat and everything. I mean, it kind of shows you why he won Rookie of the Year 2 years ago. Because, I mean, if the offense was running through him 90% of the time, I mean, you're going to get a lot of shots. But which even leads to more of the reason why, hey, it was good for Donville to win it last year. Because, you know, even though he was offensively really good, he also had a good team around him, especially towards that second half of the season. So, yeah, it's just the similarity is there, or the comparison there, I think will be something we look at, especially every time they go against each other going forward.
Continue.
Yeah, so, well, that is, of course, Mr. Andrews' stats of the game, which leads us into our Cool Cat plays of the game. There was a lot of good goals that I could definitely nominate as a play of the game, but I'm going to go back to Damude. The man was challenged to come back in a big way, and there's no bigger way you can step up and show, like, hey, I'm ready and I'm here, than taking on Jeff Teat pretty much one-on-one. I'm actually going to say that block shot right before halftime, because it was huge. I mean, in the big picture of things, he kind of shut him down, and I know that's not our regular play of the game, but man, Nick Damude showing up and showing out. I mean, getting a great block against Jeff Teat. That's my play of the game. What about for yourself?
I'd have to, well, I'll say my honorable mention, and I'm very tempted to make this my quote-unquote offensive play of the game, was Gautier's stick check after the Phil Caputo miss that led to that kind of Keystone's Cops sort of goal.
The goal non-goal by him?
Yeah, I really wish they called it as a Gautier goal, or had at least an asterisk. I get why they give it to Caputo, because he was the guy that actually had possession on our side last, but just that I really like seeing offensive players not give up on the play when they lose the ball, especially when the ball is still that close to the net, because you never know what might happen. If you're in transition and you're having to chase a guy down, then yeah, you might as well sub out. But seeing Goat not give up on the play, I mean, another part of the game, I think he was in a 4-on-1 scrum for the loose ball, which is, if you know Matthew Gauthier, it's nothing out of the ordinary for him. So definitely want to give plaudits for his timely stick check to get that score. I'd have to, on the defensive, well, I guess Gautier's was defensive as well, but I'd have to agree with you in terms of Damude's stick save to turn Jeff Teat away and get the ball in such a way that where it didn't ricochet off of him and roll back. Like, he made sure he had it was almost like taking a fly swatter and swinging it around. So yeah, it showed great athleticism and flexibility on his part. Again, he was able to get it to Patton soon after that to try to get us one last shot before the end of the quarter. So yeah. Nick Damude is back, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, it's good too. I mean, he did that a few times last year, where he would have an off game and then he'd come back and he'd play even better the next one. So I think that's something we can kind of rely on from his end. But those are, of course, our the plays of the game. Look, for our big cat player of the game, I'll say this: you seem to always have more than one player of the game, and I usually try to narrow it down to one or two. I hate to say it, but I think it's I think it's gonna be a little bit different for me this time. I actually have three.
Okay.
Well, heck, I can even add four, but I'm gonna say my three two of them is, of course, Donville. I mean, a hat trick in the first quarter. What else can you say? The man definitely wanted to prove a point. Playing against, I don't know if he wanted to prove a point against Teat or if he just wanted to just prove a point in general, but that was big. I think a hat trick in the first quarter is nothing to just push off to the side. That was crazy. Him, and then of course I can't go a show without saying Crawford, because Crawford just finds a way to do everything. Not only his assists throughout the game, but his goals helped us kind of keep that lead going and help kickstart that run in the second half, like I mentioned. But I will say, and my fourth that would have been is of course Damude. But the one I will say is the one that I called out, the one that I said, hey, show me something. And guess what? He for lack of expletives that I don't want to say on the podcast, he you know what, showed me something. And 4 goals. I mean, having 2 going into this and not really being a huge part of the offense is one thing, but man, he was like, hey, look, you want me to show up? You want me to prove something? You want me to prove that I was actually worth that draft pick? Here it is. And 4 goals by him. He is my big cat player of this game. What about for yourself?
So maybe I went a little bit more Euro this game. I am gonna call out multiple players that I think did a great job. Obviously, we've talked about Damude having a bounce back to something more that's up to his standard. Showtime with the 3 goals and 3 assists for 6 total points. Donville, the first quarter hat trick, 5 points overall, plus a block and a caused turnover, so he wasn't giving up on plays either. Tony Malcolm, I do think is obviously playing defense and playing transition, you're going to be a little less heralded. He had that one great transition goal off the Damude assist late. Picked up 10 loosies to lead the team on top of that too. And then, guys like Connor Sellers, Liam Patton, Nevin Messenger, Dylan Hutchinson, they all looked really good out there. However, I am also going to go with Jason Knox to score 4 goals on only 8 shot attempts. Is hitting 50% with the level of play of the goalies in the NLL is really impressive, especially for a rookie. And at the same time, this is a big rookie who's setting bone crushing picks. I know Mitch Wild was down for I don't know how long after taking one in the back from Knox. Hopefully he's okay. But so Knox with his what I would call his coming out party in his first year in the league with those 4 goals and 1 assist, picked up 2 loosies on top of it, and didn't record a single turnover. So protected the ball well too when he had it, and it showed with those 4 goals he scored. So yep, you and I are in agreement on player of the game.
Yeah, again, I am glad he showed up, because I've been waiting since game 1 for him to make an impact, and an impact he did. Well, that of course is our big cat players of the game. We leave New York with a win. What's your final thoughts on this game?
Great to see Damude play up to the standard that we've gotten accustomed to and whatnot. Up until the Georgia game, even in those other losses we had, he still played pretty solid in that, and just either the offense couldn't get things going or there were other issues at hand. But yeah, it was great to see him play well. Great to see Knox come out. Ryan Sheridan had a bit of a quieter game, so maybe as a rookies, maybe they're gonna swap their games. Didn't win as many faceoffs as you'd like, but thankfully it didn't. I don't think it affected us as much this game as it might have been against other teams that really try to push the ball right after they win in the circle. Just really good balanced attack. You love to see it. Hopefully we get guys like Brent Mitchell and the captain Haas back next week, so our defense can be at full strength as well.
Yeah, and I think missing those players always has some kind of an impact, but it was good to see, like you said, next man up, everybody kind of, filling in those holes, playing a little bit better, playing a little bit more consistent A lot, not as much. I didn't notice as many like sloppy plays, not as many turnovers from us, not as many bad passes. That's for dang sure. Because I think I wrote that like 6 times in last week's game, but it didn't seem like we were. It seemed like the offense was clicking a little bit more. The whole team was clicking a little bit more. The last thing I will say is we do have a bye week coming up this week again, and it's just, can we keep it up? It seems like this whole season so far has been start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. And, I don't know. I don't know if that's really good for a team. I think the schedule makers need to kind of space that out a little bit more. But, this was the first time we had consistency, and it was one game after another, and we're stopping again.
Yeah. It's tough to see, and it's just kind of how the scheduling works out, I guess. Hopefully we'll be able to put together a good string. I think on the road, it's definitely important as well, because you don't have the advantage of playing in front of your home fans and whatnot. So hopefully they can keep the concentration high and not let it affect them too much.
Yeah. And of course, there's always stuff they can work on in the bye week. But, so we have another bye week. So good for us, I guess. Our next game won't be until the 27th. So 2 weeks. But we go against a team that I will say kind of got lucky last time. They hung in there, but they got lucky. We actually go to Vegas, Vegas is coming off, like I mentioned earlier, they're coming off a win against San Diego, which was big for them. And here we are again, both with the same record. This will definitely be interesting just because it's barely been, a month since we faced them last?
Yeah, the dynamic of, are we going to be really mad about that last second shot to tie the game and then losing in sudden death overtime, or is Las Vegas going to have the confidence from beating us, getting that monkey off their back, and then also beating San Diego this past week to show that, to build their confidence up and show that they can win against quality teams in this league. It'll be interesting to see which wins out when we play.
Well, and last year, we had like you mentioned before, we had the advantage of playing the first 2 weeks against Vegas, once here and then once there.
Yeah.
And last year was kind of, I wouldn't say similar storylines, but it was a close game the first game, and then the second game we went to Vegas. It was like, hey, we're pretty good. So I don't know if we'll get that again this time. I don't know if we'll get that kind of responses from us, but yeah, no, Vegas is not the team they were last year, and they're looking to prove a point. I will say this: their record actually allows them this is crazy early on playoff picture, but they are in the top right now, and they would be that last spot.
Really? Let's see. Because they are are they 2-3?
They're 2-3, but they have the win against us, which puts them ahead.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Any tiebreakers like that?
Yeah. Still got to get used to these unified standings.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, Albany's still on top. Toronto, who beat us.
Yeah.
Second, but of course they played less games. Yeah. These games against teams that are also kind of trying to solidify one of the spots and hopefully even move up are definitely key to us. Obviously, you don't want to lose any game, but especially to one that's going to cause some major movement around where Panther City is.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, before we get to our expectations and win a loss and stuff like that, we did it last week. I think it would be good to try it again, especially with the results that we got. But we tried the Show Me Something segment. I think we should try it again. Look, for me, there is one player that comes to mind that I think still hasn't hit the stride that he's had in the years past. So I'm going to say, Show Me Something, Will Malcolm.
Interesting.
You have a goal in every game, and that's great. But this isn't the Will Malcolm I'm used to seeing. I'm used to seeing ankle breaking, shots from every which way, blowing through defenses, kind of Will Malcolm. And you just haven't been that this year. I'm not saying that you've been bad, but I know you're better. And I know you can be better. So for me, I will say, show me something, Will Malcolm. What about for you?
Interesting. Brazen after a win.
Right.
I got to stick with my favorite player, Josh Medeiros. And,
hey, 2 weeks in a row, man.
We did give him plaudits because he has taken some major hits out there. And, I don't know where his physical health is, because in general, he's one of the players that every game I see, he seems to be taking and beating.
Right.
And so, but yeah, I'd love to see him be able to not score a ton of points like he did last year, but just kind of keep that pressure on the opposing team with those quick transition opportunities. Just keep them honest. And I think that would help build his confidence as well. Because, again, stats aren't everything, especially when you're playing defense. But those transition buckets are so key to what we did last year that we've seen Tony Malcolm get in on the action. We've seen Brandon Goodwin get in on the action as well. It'd be nice to see the guy you definitely expect out of that transition spot, Medi, go in there and put some points on the board too.
Yeah, and I mean, that's again bold for you for calling out the same guy twice, twice in a row. But it's true, and we mentioned this in the game before. It just seems like he hasn't been doing what he did last year.
Yeah, something's off. And I think of it less as calling out and just like a gentle, like enthusiastic, "Hey, we're with you. We want to see you do well. Oh, why don't you show them the Medi scoring a goal and jumping up on the glass right in front of the opponent's fans, that Medi that we know and love."
Yeah, well, I'm ready for him to show up. So yeah, no, for sure. Expectations, look, just like when we talked about Vegas a month ago, I still think we are the better team. They did get extremely lucky getting a goal with 1.5 seconds left in the game to tie it up and force us into overtime. I really don't know if Vegas, it's almost like they don't know that. They don't know that we're the better team. And so
we have to humble them.
Yeah, almost. I mean, it's like they got that win against us at home, and then they got that win against San Diego. And yes, they might have the same record as us, but those are two big wins for them. And so it's like,
yeah,
how do we? It's almost like we need to prove a point. And I'm not saying we're going to shut them out or anything, but
one thing,
yeah, go ahead.
They won, from what it looks like, they won against San Diego in California. So they've yet to get a home win this year. So maybe
the San Diego game was at home.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was at home. It was which the only reason I know that for sure is because it was Gretzky night. So they had. Oh
yeah, you're right. Sorry, I got my arenas mixed up. Yeah, Michelob Ultra is in Vegas.
Yeah.
So okay, yeah. Well, in that case, it'd be fun to put an end to that home win streak before it even starts.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we need to continue to play aggressive offense and solid defense. And with that bye week in between, I don't know if we can keep that consistency just yet, but I hope so. So I'm going to see it's going to be another good back and forth game, probably closer than we want it to be. But I hope we learned from the first game we went against them, and I hope we learned from this week, and even that comeback against Georgia. Like, we're never actually out of it. We're never just down and out. Like, we should be fighting for every game, and I think we prove it this game. Which I forgot to mention it. We had the most goals we've had all season, the most points we've had all season with this game. I don't think we're going to reach that this game. I'm going to say it's probably like a 12 to 12-9 kind of game. So yeah, I say we win 12-9.
No, they've developed a pretty good tandem this year that wasn't quite there last year, but with it being their first season and everything, you have a veteran like Zach Greer that's able to distribute and score now and then too, along with Panther City draft pick, if I'm not mistaken, Jack Hanna, who we ended up having to trade away just because there were too many assets for us as a new team starting out. So I'm sure he's always, whenever he plays us, he's probably got a bit of a chip on his shoulder. I do think that we are going to atone for that first overtime loss. I think Coach TK is going to make sure, him, Downs, and Toll, they're all going to make sure that the guys are come ready to play. And if we're able to get a lead on the road late, I think they're going to make sure that we're able to keep it as best as we can. So I'm also expecting a Panther City win, 13-10.
13-10. Okay. Yeah, same deficit, but they get a little bit extra in there. But hey, I definitely look forward to that game. I hate that we have to wait another week for it. Before we, end off this podcast, there's definitely a few other things I just wanted to touch on real quick. First of which, I mean, you mentioned it in the chat, so I thought I threw it in the rundown. But Albany, like Georgia, as much as we went against them last week and saw their offensive power and firepower, Albany, man, they're hitting just, I guess, a good stride. They actually beat Georgia in impressive fashion over the weekend, keeping them undefeated.
Yeah, it's really nice to see, especially for a team. They're not as fresh as, say, Las Vegas or even Panther City, but they haven't had very much success early on in their since they've been established. So to see them do well, it can only help the team. It can only help the community and grow the sport. We got to give I don't think he played in the last game, but glad that where Nathan Grennan ended up is doing well. So yeah, just it's fun to see new teams pop up on the at the top of the standings.
Right, unexpected teams that with these unified standings probably normally wouldn't be undefeated or wouldn't have a better record. And so, yeah, I will say hats off to Albany so far. Again, I really hate whenever we are going to eventually have to go against them. Who knows? They might still be undefeated by the time.
Yeah, God, that'd be crazy. I do know that Alex Simmons is having a season kind of along the same lines as Teat and Donville had the past 2 years. So if the team's this successful with him putting up the numbers that he is, I think he's got the inside track to Rookie of the Year.
Oh yeah. He's definitely a player we'll have to keep an eye out for. And then of course, like I mentioned with the bye week, we won't have obviously a show like this next week, but we will have one of our highlight videos that we made. Actually, this one highlighting Cowtown Brewery in downtown Fort Worth. So that'll be a nice little break for us, but. I, for one, it's like full-time sports right now. Hockey's going on. I mean, lacrosse is going on, playoffs, which, I'm just going to throw this out there. My Houston Texans won. So, hey, good for them.
Yep. Good for them. Indeed. They did a lot better than some of the other teams that are in this state.
not to mention, but yeah, just a little bit better. But no, I mean, look, it happens. It's the playoffs. So, but yeah, no, it's great that we're kind of in the middle of most of the sports right now. I mean, baseball hasn't started back up yet, but there's just a lot of stuff going on. So
yeah. Oh, along the same lines, you mentioned the episode about the brewery. There's also going to be a meet and greet this Sunday, I believe, on the 21st, where you can hang out with. I think the two players that are going to be there are Patrick Foley and Jason Knox. So you could shake Knox's hand and thank him for scoring all those goals.
I was about to say, yeah. I'm gonna have to figure out make sure that my schedule works for that. So yeah, no, because I definitely want to try to make those more this year as well. So if you get a chance and you're in Fort Worth, be sure to check them out. But as I mentioned before, let's hope Panther City can kind of keep everything going in the right direction and keep that momentum going after the bye week. I look forward to this game against Vegas, but as always, thank you guys all for listening. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, X, YouTube. I'm once again Nicholas.
And I'm once again Andy.
We'll see you in a few weeks, hopefully with another win and a 3-3 record. Hopefully gearing up for that good playoff run. Try to get that playoff spot this year.
Yep. Fingers crossed. Cheers, y'all.